Welcome everyone to our final virtual supplier showcase of the year as we're gearing up for the International Expo. I want to extend a huge thanks to David Stevens with Trotec Laser and Kelly Walters with Stahls for joining us today. We're excited to see your presentations and welcome everybody. Thank you for joining us again. And for those of you who've been on before, we have a couple of brief reminders. So as we're getting started here, if you have any technical difficulties or questions, please go ahead and email us at info@, or you can go ahead and just type into the chat and we have one of our team members monitoring. We have 60 minutes together today. So both Kelly and David will present and then we will move into our breakout sessions. So the breakouts are fun because it's an opportunity for you to ask questions and then network. You can go into a room with David or Kelly, and then you can switch. So it's up to you, or you can stay in the same breakout the entire time. So you have that flexibility. If anybody has any issues getting to their breakout room, we have our fantastic team member, Isabella, who can help you get to your room. And we will be sending out a survey at the end of the session, and we would appreciate your feedback. All right. A friendly reminder about our antitrust. I know many of you have heard this before. Due to the fact that we are a trade association of both suppliers and customers, we need to be careful about certain conversations that we have both on our webinars and on this session today. So there are a few items down at the bottom of this big blurb here that I like to point out. So certain topics we need to steer away from. Raising, lowering, or stabilizing prices or fees, including credit terms, regulating production or the availability of products or services, allocating markets or customers, encouraging boycotts, or fostering uncompetitive prices. So in general, I like to say, let's steer away from talking about pricing, and then we'll be safe. All right, and then I'm excited to announce that we are open for registration for the International Expo, which is going to be February 22nd through the 25th in Las Vegas at the Paris Hotel. We've already had a number of people register, and we're looking forward to seeing all of you in person again in Las Vegas. So please go ahead and register and let us know if you have any questions. And now we're going to move into the presentation portion of today. And before we officially get started, I wanted to introduce our board president, Lisa Higginbotham, who is going to share with us a few words. Lisa?
Thanks, Liz. Thanks everyone for being here. Last supplier showcase of the year. I know everyone's busy. We're slammed. That's a good thing. So I've got a really special announcement for today's last virtual showcase of the year. And I'm happy that Dave Stevens of Trotec is here with us today to receive his well-deserved recognition. I see it on his table right behind him. But I want to say we've had an incredibly different year and have gathered more virtually than in person. And yet David has been a steady and solid provider of quality content throughout the pandemic. And before that, for many years at face-to-face APA expos, regional shows, and also webinars. I have watched a boatload of Dave Stevens webinars during this time, and it's kept me, I've learned a lot of things, so that's been great. And so today I am honored to officially present him with the 2020-2021 Speaker of the Year Gold Obelisk. Congratulations, David. Before I let him say a few words, I want to share a little bit about the award. To establish the Speaker of the Year recipient, all member company primary contacts and certification enrollees were asked to evaluate and rank their top speakers from the past year of education. The education committee then selects the final recipient based on knowledge, advocacy, and commitment to continuing education. David was described in the following way, and you'll notice a common word is being used: passion. So here's a couple snippets. One of them says, Laser Dave is very passionate about laser engraving. You can tell he loves his job of sharing knowledge to his customers and vendors. King David is knowledgeable, professional, and passionate about laser engraving. He truly cares about his customers and their laser needs. David's knowledge of lasers is unmatched. He has an immense passion for laser engraving, and his creativity is amazing. His webinars are very well done, and he has even incorporated multiple engraving technologies in his webinars. Not only are David's classes entertaining, but they are highly informational with real-world knowledge and applications. People rave about his classes. Congratulations, David, on your Speaker of the Year award.
Thank you so very much, Lisa. I was quite humbled by it actually showing up in the mail yesterday, and I knew nothing of it. So it showed up in the mail, and I was quite thrown back, not knowing that I was even nominated. So I do truly appreciate it. I am very passionate about it. I appreciate all the glorious and wonderful feedback that has come over the years. I am truly passionate about lasers. It's just hit me when I first started it, and I took it by the horns and have taken it into a lifelong career. So I do very much appreciate this wonderful award, and I hope to continue in the future.
Congratulations, David.
Thank you so much.
All right, and with that, we're going to start our official program. Thank you, Lisa.
Okay, does everybody see my screen? Okay, perfect. Well, thank you so much for that great and wonderful intro. Quite unexpected from my standpoint. This course today is going to cover just a little bit about my Laser Hacks 3.0. However, I do want to inform everyone that today's course is going to be an abbreviated version of this. At the end of the course, I will give you a link if you want to watch my full version, which I will be doing later this month live. You're welcome to watch it in its full entirety at this time. However, we don't have quite enough time, so I'm just going to give you a smaller kind of Cliff Notes version, if you will, of this course today. So today's course is going to include a little bit of some of the new laser hacks that I have come up with recently. Hit and click it here. If you're not familiar with it, my courses typically have QR codes. If you're not familiar with QR codes, it's a simple process. Just turn on your camera app on your mobile device, point your camera at the QR code, but don't take a photo, and a link will show up on the screen to get quick and easy access to web links, files, and videos that we will reference to throughout the course. Trotec is also a very social company. If you want to keep up with me on current events, trainings, applications, laser materials, please scan the QR code of your favorite social media platform to follow me as well as Trotec on all these new techniques for the future. Today's course, like I say, is an abbreviated version since we are limited on time, but we're going to cover some of the more common, some of the favorite ones within this course. And then if you want to continue on, again, I will give you a course outline for the final or the full 90-minute version, which I will be doing the third Thursday of this month. I will give you a link for that at the end of this course if you want to continue on with some of my courses and outlines. So today's course is going to cover using focus for effect, grayscale glass engraving, paint fill unpolished materials, engraving to cut, and some laser file resources. So moving forward here, using focus for effect. When running a laser system, you're taught to stay in focus for everything. Staying in focus is like holding a magnifying glass in the sun. You get it just right, you get that focus point, and that's when you're going to get the most reaction to the laser system. Well, there are cases when we can actually benefit by taking the laser system out of focus, going away from what you're taught and what you would need to use that for. Now, this can be done by calculating how much out of focus to go to get a desired effect for the process. So this laser hack will cover how to do that. Now, deliberately running your laser system out of focus by a calculated amount can produce different effects. You can create glazing effects or melting effects onto polymers and plastics, or a darkening effects into wood. You can increase the thickness of your vector mark on all kinds of materials. For example, you can see the little lion here. You're able to go with a darker outline versus a thinner outline when vectoring. Instead of engraving back and forth, you follow the path like you're cutting, but going a much lower power, and you can get a different effect. Partial autofocus glazing affecting on acrylic, as well as I have another one on wood, but we're not going to get into all of them. Like I say, I am limited on time. And so the first one, and probably one of my favorites, is using focus effect onto acrylic. So here's a good example of using relief mode or a 3D mode when glazing on cast acrylic. With relief mode in focus, you typically engrave and you're going to get a polished or not a polished, but a frosted effect onto the surface of the acrylic. And then when you run a second out of focus method, you're going to get a glazed, kind of an opaque look. And here's an example. So here's a video. First I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and cut out an outline. The reason I cut it out first is the heat from the cut can actually distort it. So we want to cut it first, hold the piece down with a template so it's not going to move. Then I'm going to engrave using relief or 3D mode, a textured graphic using relief mode, which is going to give me a 3-dimensional fish scale pattern in this case. Well, when you engrave depth into something like acrylic, you're going to get all kinds of this snowy white residue. So I want to run that file, then reach into the machine and then brush all that material off, blow it off, get any extra material off. And then we're going to take a black outline or black graphic, and we're going to take that laser out of focus. And we're going to go out of focus by about 1/2 of an inch away from the material. You can go towards the material, but it runs the risk of hitting your nozzles or your nose cones, or also if there's any flaring, you can be closer to the material, it could be more hazardous. So I always suggest, if you're going out of focus, to move the laser head away, further away from the material. But as you can see here, what's happening is taking it out of focus is actually effectively giving you a glazing effect. And so I'm getting the best of both worlds. I'm getting a textured depth. I am then turning that back clear while ignoring certain areas of it. And then that is producing a glazing effect with the white effect. Now, there's no other piece of technology that could do something like this. So in essence, we are able to create a textured background, an opaque transparency with a frosted effect and a 3D effect all onto a piece of acrylic, simply by using the focus as is, as well as out of focus within the same file. And this is just an example of what can be done, but there are all kinds of very interesting, unique applications that can be taught or used by using this method. So playing with focus is definitely an interesting process that can produce some really neat, unique effects. Here are a couple other out of focus methods, which we don't have time today, that are already on our YouTube channel. If you want to scan and watch these, this is from my laser hack series. So the little line right here, basically in focus vector mark, single line vector mark, and then going out of focus and then running it with a little more power. You get the, a 9-second mark, but you're not engraving it, you're vectoring it, and then you get a much bolder, thicker mark. On the right here is the acrylic mark running at 125 DPI. And then going out of focus and running an outline around the characters, so around the box and around the text here. And so what that does is it makes a very low resolution look sharp on the edges, and it really drastically improves your productivity and speed when you're doing signage, and still makes it look very, very nice. Actually, I think it looks nicer than running at high resolutions, because that border really makes it stand out. Almost looks like a drop shadow effect to the actual graphic itself. So if you want to scan these 2 QR codes or come back to this video at a later date and scan them, or take a picture of this screen for a future rate, feel free to do so. And so you can watch these additional laser hacks. Another one that I like to do is a grayscale glass laser engraving hack. This is one that I came up with well over 20 years ago as a laser hack, and it's still good today. Glass is an interesting material, and laser engraving glass causes microfracts that diffuse the light, causing a bright frosted appearance into the mark areas. The process produces stunning images, logos, and even photos on glass. There are many types of glass that will do that will produce better, different results when processed. And that's the thing that so many people don't understand. There are lots of different types of glass out there. There's their standard soda lime glass. This is the most common. This is what most of your dinnerware is made from, most of awards, your plate glass and stuff like that. It's inexpensive, easy to get glass. But the difference is there's a misconception in the industry that cheap glass produces better engraving results. Well, that misconception came from the sandblasting industry, which is where that is true. In the laser industry, that is not true. Unfortunately, I have done extensive testing over 22 years and found that higher quality glass produces a much higher quality laser engraving. So a pro tip is to use higher quality. Definitely look at better, higher quality glasses if you want that real sharp effect. So, an example here is that this wine glass that I have in my corner here is a titanium crystal glassware. I found that this stuff is incredible. It can handle deviations from focus. It is just stunning in its response. Now, most glass you can't get titanium crystal. So the trick that I use for glass is what's called a half-toning effect. So if I were to engrave this graphic right here as 100% black, then the effect that I'm going to get into the surface of the material is going to give you a more of a chipping and flaking. So this is in focus, and the key with glass is to really stay in focus. But I'm engraving with a little extra power on purpose to kind of produce a teeny bit of depth. But when you do that, and you may have run across this before, you get this effect. So little chips and flakes, especially if you run your hands over the surface of it, it is just not going to produce the effect. So what I suggest for the laser hack is to turn to a shade of grayscale. So in this case, I've taken that same graphic and I've converted to 60% grayscale. Now the grayscale, what happens when you turn grayscale on, your laser is going to dither it, either a halftone dither or an order dither. And then what's going to do is it's going to spread your pulses apart. Now this does a much nicer job. You don't get the chipping and flaking, but you'll notice up in like the edges and stuff are just still not sharp. And that's because the halftone effect is basically spreading the pulses apart. So to fix that, the next step, in this case, I'm going to take a 30% black and I'm going to add a black outline around it. This is going to give me the best of all worlds in this case. The black outline is going to give me the stabled edge quality, and then the grayscale inside while running halftone or order dithering is going to stabilize the pulse factor inside, keeping chipping and flaking from happening. So here you see the much higher quality. You also see kind of the little peaks and valleys and divots that are inside, which is going to make it much easier to do color filling and other effect. It makes it look brighter and more affected. This effect also works really well on like plastics that don't tend to produce a frosted white. So say you got some extruded acrylic and you want it to stand out more. If you do this effect onto that extruded acrylic, it also produces a more frosted appearance under the surface of that material. So this is what I would suggest, mainly for larger, bolder characters. Small characters, 8, 10, 12 point font, just leave that pure black. It's not going to make any difference. And we don't tend to see chipping and flaking issues on small text and characters anyway. But when you have larger field, this is a 4x6 piece of glass, so it's pretty large text on here. The halftone effect really does a nice effect into it, and it spreads the pulsing apart. And you may ask, well, why does it work that way? And that is because of heat. When you're pulsing into glass, glass doesn't like heat. And so I use high-speed photography to actually showcase exactly what's happening between the different effect. And so you can see here on the left here, on the lower left here, the amount of heat that comes from 100% black. It's because that laser is firing continuously. It's firing usually 1,000 pulses in 1 inch of travel. And that additional heat is what's causing a lot of the chipping and fracturing to happen, in addition to going out of focus. Focus is also another really critical aspect of processing glass. Now, when I run at 30% black, you can see the pulses are spread apart because that laser fires and then it doesn't fire and fires again. And you can truly see here with the high-speed photography, as that pulse goes by, that laser is truly, it's separating those pulses, stabilizing the glass quality, and it's given us more of a frosted effect and an additional, a cleaner effect. And so that's why lower pulses tend to, or grayscale, tend to spread out the laser pulses, producing a nicer effect into glass. Now, taking that glass effect, you can take it a step further, and because it produces that pulsing or halftone effect into the surface, it is very easy to paint fill on. And so paint filling on polished surface is something that a lot of people don't realize you can do. Most will mask a surface of a piece of material that they're going to run, and then they will laser engrave through it, fill it with paint, and then peel that mask off. Well, polished materials, you don't need to do that. And so in polished materials, I can laser engraved onto the surface of polished materials such as stone, glass, polished plastics, and metals. with or metals with something like a fiber laser, and then I can easily rub color down inside, and it'll typically buff off the surface of the material. Yeah, I typically like to use like an oil-based paint, wax-based paints like the rub and buff is nice because they come in the real metallic look. So if you want that gold leaf subsurface laser engraved look, the wax-based rub and buff works really well. Acrylic-based paints work really well as well. Stay away from alcohol-based paints or any spray paints onto like acrylics because it can cause fracturing. So I will typically use the paste-based paints like the artistic stuff as you see here. And here's an example. So here's a halftone little lion that I engraved. And if I engrave this on a large piece of plate glass, and then I want to color fill this as a gold effect. And so because it is that half-toned effect, I can take a Grecian gold in this case and just put a small amount of it into the glass without any type of masking. And this is done live. There's no time lapse or anything done here. You can very, very quickly just rub that paint down in the surface and then fold your cloth a little bit and then buff it right out. And because it produces those little divots when engraving, it won't wipe back out. And so you can just literally buff it right off. And this works with wax-based paints, oil-based paints, artistic, acrylic-based paints. So you can get that effect that you want onto the surface of the glass very quickly and very effectively, as you can see here, without picking little pieces of mask off after you have laser engraved it. Here's another one that I get a lot. So many people out there have a laser and they really want to move forward with their laser, but they're not greatly proficient at maybe a graphic design. And that is the hardest part. I have found, you got this wonderful machine that can do so much, but you spend so much time in front of your computer trying to develop different graphics and to run to your laser. So I have put together a list of different companies that produce free files. And here's the first one, Trotec itself. You can go right to our website. You can scan this QR code. Currently, we have 180 plus free laser projects. Tells you the material, the assembly, the process, how to do it, where to get the materials, the downloadable free file in multiple formats. And so great resources for you to get started. All the files are copyright free. You can use them, you can design them, you can develop them, you can sell them. Any of that case, they just don't typically ask that you sell the file themselves. Here's some more. These are companies that also produce free laser files. So I had calculated somewhere above 25,000 laser files within these 6 different sites here. So Instructables, 3-Axis, Thingiverse, Stetson, Emid, and Free Pattern Area are all ones that I have used over the years. And so in this case, I've consolidated them together, all free. Sometimes they'll ask for donations if you can. Others will ask if you can contribute some of your files so that others can do it. It's kind of like a file share type program. So if you want to search for a laser cut shelf, go to one of these sites, do a search for laser cut, and you're going to find thousands of files that'll get you started. And then you'll see how files are generated. You can adjust them, you can modify, you can use components of these files to then create your own file. So these are great resources to get you started. They do ask that you don't sell the files on other sites, for example, but you can use them as much as you would like. You can take the finished product and sell it in your Etsy shop or on your storefront or website, and benefit by a lot of these different files out there. Another one here is Free Laser Source. This one I like to stand alone. It's called Maker Design Lab. They also have files, but this site is wonderful because they have file generators. So if you've ever wanted to generate and create your own box, they have a free generator on there that'll create a box. You just tell it the dimensions of your box, the thickness of your material, and it'll create all the tabs so that the box will snap right together. Same with a puzzle. How big of a puzzle do you want? It'll generate a puzzle generator. Gear generator. Do you want a meshing of gears that's going to give you the certain rotation factor that you want to cut those gears out on the laser? Generate the gears. It gives you a vector format output. Same with maze. They also have a nesting algorithm in there. So you can upload your file and it'll nest it to fit your material. And then you download it right and then send it to your laser to run. Plus they have projects, experiments, tutorials, and tips. So this is a great resource if you want to utilize these free generators. And I really like the free generators because it makes it very, very quick and easy to generate something like a custom shaped box for you, or the right gear meshings or type of gear that you need for your project. The next one here is engraving to cut. That seems like a contradiction in terms, but it is true. So in this case, there are times that I can actually use the engraving process to cut a material. So when you're cutting out a piece of thin material, for example, you're actually limited to the beam diameter or kerf of that laser beam. So you can only cut so much detail. Because of the heat and the beam diameter, you can only get so small. So here's an example at the bottom here where it's laser cut out, pretty small, intricate detail. It took over 7 minutes to cut all that detail out. But if I adjust the file, I can actually engrave through the thin material instead, all the way through, and I'm able to do it not only better quality, the detail is better, as well as it's much, much faster. So this is a great example. So here's an example as it's cut. You can see just a red outline, and then if I were to laser cut that out, it's going to take just over 7 minutes to process. And that laser, you know, in this case is a 40x time lapse, just to show it to you in a quicker standpoint. But as you can see here, we get intricate detail. This is a thin piece of veneer wood, but we're able to cut out that intricate lacy pattern. It took forever, but it came out very nice. Instead, I will convert it to a black outline, as you can see here, and then I will laser engrave all the way through simply by adjusting the laser power up until I've penetrated through the entire material. So this is a great process for producing much, much higher detail. And the other benefit of this process is I can go much, much higher detail and smaller than I can with the cutting. So in this case, I've now taken it 50% smaller. And then I'm going to do it again at 75% smaller. So we're actually doing the same graphic down to the size of close to a postage stamp. This cannot be done with the cutting process. So you can see here, I pop it off the cutting grid, and then we'll flip it around here. And so we're talking postage stamp effects. And so there you go, the cut method. And then we've got the 3 engraved methods there at even smaller process. So you can see here that the process of engraving through a material, and this works mainly on thin materials, but engraving through the materials will truly effectively give you a nicer effect. I've actually taken this a step further, and by doing multiple passes, I've also even done it through thicker material. So going multiple directions and then engraving all the way through, say, 0.1 or 1/10 of an inch thick piece of wood, or 5 laser passes to go through something like acrylic, where acrylic would melt if you were to try to do this much detail. So yes, in these cases, it does take more time, but this much intricacy you could not do with a cutting process at this size, no matter what lens you're using. So this is a great laser hack using engraving to cut to produce effects that just can't be done any other way. Well, we're getting low on time here, so if you want more laser hacks, I will be doing this course again here on November 18th, but it's the full 90-minute version of it. If you want to scan this QR code and sign up for that, it's just an extended version of the one I just covered. This was an abbreviated version of 20 minutes, so another 90 total minutes. Scan this QR code if you want. And you can sign up for the full version of it as well. If you have missed any of my previous laser hacks, you can definitely take a look at my Laser Hacks 1.0 seminar done a few years back. That's also on our YouTube channel. Again, great tips and tricks of using everything from Legos to rubber balls to do multiple effects, effectively giving you a more efficient means to run your laser by giving tips, tricks, and effects to improve your productivity, your quality, your pre and post processing of your lasering. Laser Hacks 2.0 is also currently online. You're welcome to scan this QR code. Again, lots of good tips and tricks just to make you a more efficient laser operator. Or if you don't want to watch the entire seminars, which they can go for an hour plus. I also have most of my laser hacks standalone. 31 of them are already on our YouTube channel. So if you want to go through and actually find specific ones that are going to be benefit to you on a per piece, a la carte type fashion, feel free to scan this QR code and take a look at all those different techniques, tricks, tips, and how helpful benefits to help you on your laser system. That's it for me. Thank you so much for your time, and we'll then move forward with this course.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, David. That was a fantastic presentation. All right. And now I'm very happy to introduce Kelly Walters with Stahls. Kelly?
Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for having me. And David, I must say that Engraved to Cut with that lace detail was exquisite. So thank you for showing that, because it's actually going to be one of the things I'm going to talk about when utilizing your laser. But let's just quickly get started. Now, similar to David's conversation about 20 minutes, with anything heat transfers and heat presses and really decorating garments, accessories, we could go on for hours and hours and talk about different niches, different types of products, and really different specifics that you may want to use over just offering anything and everything in the transfer world. So I am not doing a PowerPoint today. It's going to be me going over just a couple of key factors, especially if you are brand new to using a heat press, and just really want to give you some visuals because there's so much out there in the world of heat decorating. So if you are wanting any further information, like we said at the very beginning, we'll be able to break off, and then of course you can always reach out, and we have several other avenues to kind of help get you prepared when it comes to heat decorating. So let's go ahead and quickly get started. For those of you that don't have a heat press, or maybe you have a heat press, but maybe you're experiencing some issues, the biggest thing when it comes to decorating garments, accessories, headwear, is making sure you have an efficient and a quality heat press. I know sometimes that means spending a little bit more, but just like anything when it comes to equipment, you will get the value out of investing just a little bit more. If you are curious if the heat press you have is really hitting those notches, can it tell you the correct temperature? Can you get an accurate pressure readout? And are you able to really adjust and set the correct time without just counting in your head? There's presses that you can get on Amazon. There's presses you can go get in a craft store. So just really taking those things into consideration can really help set you up for success in this world. This may not be the key part of your business, and that's okay. But if you're doing quality work with awards and personalization, you don't want to not produce quality work in other areas. So when you are looking at moving forward, if you don't have a cutter, that is just fine. If you have a laser, excellent, because you can do so much. And if you aren't really wanting to move into the cutter, maybe you're not really wanting to use the laser to cut out your materials, then you can actually order transfers, be sent to your office, your home, wherever you're at, and they will be ready to apply. So what that means is they would look something like this. Now this is one that I have cut here in my office, but just to give you an idea, it would come already peeled. All you do is peel the backing, you have your transfer, and you just apply it. So very simple in terms of time, and of course time is money. So you don't want to spend too much time and not have that profit. So when you are trying to consider what you need to do in terms of heat transfers, this isn't just meaning vinyl. This isn't just meaning a screen printed transfer. A heat transfer could be sublimation. It could be an emblem. It could be a leather patch. It could be an embroidered patch. It could be vinyl. It could be twill. It really encompasses everything within the heat transfer world. And each avenue has its own reason as to why you would want to use a specific transfer. Sometimes it's based off of quantity, sometimes it's based off of color, and sometimes it's really coming down to the substrate that you're printing on. Maybe it's a fleece, maybe it is a garment that is nylon, and it's sometimes difficult to decorate on nylon. So there's a lot of things that you have to take into consideration, from the logo that your customer is wanting to use or that you're wanting to create for your customer, as well as the textile that you are decorating on. There isn't a wrong answer. Sometimes there is a better option, and a better option for efficiency and overall cost, which helps you in return. So with Stahls, we are vinyl, we are screen printed transfers, we are twill, we are emblems and patches, and we do offer sublimation transfers, but that is more of a fulfillment versus what our bread and butter is. And with Stahls, our bread and butter is vinyl, screen printed transfers, and really just educating on how to maximize your job. So let's go into a couple of different categories. Before you're really trying to figure out, do I want to go into vinyl? Maybe you just want to offer fulfillment tees. Sorry, I just froze on my end. So if I froze for you, hopefully everybody is still with me. If you are trying to just add that, hey, Sam, can you go ahead and, fulfill 20 t-shirts for me? I need 20 polos, and you're looking just for that. You don't want it to be your main advertisement or really advertise that you do this. Then find what type of transfer is really going to be best for what you need. And the best way to find that is to have the questions, know your customer or customers. Maybe it's a particular niche, or really what the timeline looks like on how you want to be able to fulfill. I know these are a lot of questions to ask yourself, but at the end of the day, it's going to really set you up for success and not have you feel like you're pulling your hair out, just trying to figure out which transfer is going to be best for your business. So standard easy is going to be vinyl, and vinyl can be cut with a craft cutter, something like a Cricut or a Silhouette. It could be an industrial cutter, which would be a Roland, Graphtec, and there's several other brands. And then of course you can use a laser to cut your vinyl. And this is one of the things that I think is so cool about a laser, is that lace-like detail that you guys just saw is something that you can actually, I'm going to use the term engrave to cut in vinyl. So if your customer is wanting an extremely smooth but high detailed design, it is going to take some longer time to do that with your laser, but the way it moves on a garment just really feels like it's in the fibers versus sitting on top. So if you have a laser, I strongly recommend just jumping right into vinyl and playing with it and seeing what you can create and come up with, because it's quite cool. So I'm going to show you a couple of examples, and then I'm going to try to get as close as possible as the camera is going to let me, to actually let you guys see some of the detail. And in this particular case, let your imagination start to wander. Here in this world, I don't have a laser at my fingertips, so I can't show you all of the insane things that you can do, but I'm going to show you some really easy to execute designs. And if something sparks your interest, then feel free to ask a question in our next session. So in terms of easy to use vinyl, and one thing that I want you guys to consider is, what problem are you trying to solve for your customers? Is it, again, hey Sam, can you create some t-shirts for me? I need 50 shirts that are going to go on a poly spandex, and I need them to stretch. I want smooth, texture, dimension. There's so many different types out there. This is a material called Premium Plus, and it is a very, very smooth, you almost can't feel it, and has a great kind of buttery soft. The special thing about this material is not only the weight and the thinness on the garment, is its ability to stretch and rebound like this. So if this was on spandex, if it was on a sports bra, leggings, if it's on a t-shirt, this is just an Adidas, I believe it's a cotton poly, or excuse me, a poly spandex shirt. This is what you want the garment to do when there's a logo. You don't want it to stretch and then start to crinkle, and then as it snaps back, it looks like it's going to peel off of the garment. As you can see, I've stretched this guide numerous times and to its max, and it snaps right back. Now, this one, like I said, was done with a cutter, and these details are all connected. So as you are weeding that excess material, it's just all one simple pull. All right, up next is going to be mixing media. And I love that term and phrase here with Stahls. You can kind of see how crazy glittery this is. This is called glitter flake. And underneath that is ultra weed, which is a very, very thin material, similar to something like screen print. It is a great option for screen print if you're needing to do onesies and twosies, or even 10 and 20 pieces. Now with something like this, when it comes to vinyl versus trying to screen print something like that of that glitter nature, you are not going to get any flake. You can also cut this with a laser as well. And I really just wish my camera would show really how intense this glitter is, but it allows it to really pop off of the garment and create a little bit of dimension and depth, simply because we have a flat material as well as a textured glitter on top. Now, this might be a little too trendy for who your customer is, but if you have somebody that you know likes to play with materials and likes to create new things, they want to be different, this is an excellent way to go. Now up next is metallic, and with both the glitter and metallic, these are probably two of the things that we hear a lot about in question if you're going to notice the metallic washing off in the washer, or is it going to fade over a couple of washes? Same thing for the glitter. Nobody wants glitter all over the floor, all over the car, and these are not going to do that. So you're able to provide them that unique, that specialty, that glitz and glam, which always warrants a higher cost, but you're also able to do this with ease, and you don't have to stress about how you're going to execute this. So this is our metallic material. I'm going to adjust my light just a second. And I still kind of have a cast on it, but we've got gold mixed with a purple, creating kind of a tonal look. And this metallic is going to stay metallic. It is not going to fade in the wash, and it is not going to fade over time. This is going to stay nice and crisp. Now, you don't have to do a full print of metallic. This is where heat transfer is excellent. You could laser etch something on a garment and turn around and do a pop of metallic somewhere in the design, just to create, again, more dimension, more of an elevated look. And you're using two different types of ways to really decorate the garment. So this is metallic. And then we're going to get into some dimension. Now, this is actually a 3-step process. This is glitter flake in the front. And then this white and black is actually what we call soft foam. And it is a dimensional product. It's extremely lightweight, has great movement. And it can also be layered on each other. You can kind of see just a little bit of the dimension in that, but it's not going to let me focus how I want. But this is really creating that applique look without any type of stitch. This was done using a Stahls Trotec auto clam, a 16x20. So there's nothing fancy about how this was cut and heat applied. With that, I also have a hat where we duplicated that exact design. And this is done by using a cap press. but you can really see the dimension in that as well as the texture. We're playing with finishes, we're playing with texture, and then we are also playing with some height. You can see just a little bit right there. All right, next would be decorating on accessories. If you can use your laser, then you have the ability to create a background design and then bring any type of logo going forward when you're using heat transfers. This is our soft foam again, and as you can see, it has been layered on top. It's all about the angles when it comes to virtual events, I can tell you that much. And this is the exact same material that we used for the M and for the hat. So the only difference is you're having to think outside of the box on how you can offer your products for your customers. So if somebody wanted to take a camo and you were going to etch some type of camo design into this flap, turn around, then put their logo on the front. And now you've not only created and logoed an accessory for them, you've really branded it from top to bottom and made them a custom product, or changed you know, a blank garment to something that's so unique that they can't just go grab off the shelf. So I love looking at products on ways to take something that might be a little bit more simple and how can we really elevate it and make it different for our customer or even the next 50 customers that might be using the same product. All right, so that is a quick run of heat transfer vinyl. Now we've got several other products to show you, but we're going to transition a little bit into different types of heat transfers. That is all vinyl. Those are all cut with rolls. Cut using a roll of material, which would be something like behind me. Again, you can upload your artwork to several places, especially Stahls, and we can send you your art cut ready to be heat applied. Or if you have the capacity and the ability to cut in your facility, then order a roll, get cutting, and start testing some product. Now, we are going to go into what I call eliminate the stitch. We like to use that phrase here at Stahls, and it is basically to compete with other types of industries, maybe like embroidery or sublimation, but still kind of give you that overall look. Like I said, a lot of transfers have their reasoning for why you would want to use them. So I'm not telling you one is bad or one is better to use over the other. Sometimes they just make a little bit more sense for the business and for the job. So what we're going to talk about is what's called perma-twill, and specifically Cad Prints. So in this particular category, we're going to be talking about twill. Some call it applique, but there is absolutely no stitch going on in this. So if you have the ability to use embroidery, then no, you can still sew down if you like. However, the transfers I'm showing you have a lasered edge, so there is no fraying, and there is a permanent heat applied adhesive on the back, so you do still need a heat press. So this is a denim jacket. These are extremely popular right now in all things retail, and we have created a traveling jacket. Now this may not really be the type of customer that you have. If it is, and these patches can turn into award patches, and they're able to do that. This is something that started just like this, and then it was heat applied again using my heat presses right here. So if you see me go to touch it, it's right there. But these are all just individually applied. You can see that this one has gone over multiple seams, and a thick seam at that. We've got a variety of colors, shapes. This is all done up in your artwork. So if you want to have crazy detail, if you want to have a whole bunch of colors, you can easily do that and not have to worry about a needle penetrating the garment or potentially damaging anything that you are decorating. Okay, so next up is actually another foam type material. This is soft foam, but this is specifically using patterns. And from far away, it kind of looks like tree bark, but it also kind of looks like a stucco on a house. So there's some really cool textures and a whole bunch of patterns out there. But just to give you an idea on something that you can really just let your imagination go. And if your customer says, hey, I need this, then most of the time we can figure out a way to get it done. So staying on Cad Prints Twill. This one always has a big wow factor. As you can see, this is a very large print. This is a textured twill. Again, this is art that was uploaded, and this transfer is sent to you. Trying to show you, there we go. You can see the texture. So it looks like there is some stitching in the garment, but this is actually one giant logo that you just heat apply at once. It does have a satin finish. It is still 100% polyester, but you're getting a little bit of a sheen here versus this one, which would be a little bit more matte. Now, using that metallic, we've just slapped homegrown on the front. This could be for a specific brand. This could be for a business that is wanting to offer, you know, hoodies or garments for their customers to buy and just represent them. Here in the Midwest, there's a lot of farming. So that's where the whole wheat and sunset is really kind of coming through. Again, really easy to apply. This is 300 degrees for only 20 seconds. So after 20 seconds, you get a completely full back, full color, beautiful finish. And then the one on the front is 285 for 8 to 12 seconds. So in under a minute, you have a completely decorated garment. And you didn't really have to do much besides know the artwork that you were going to use. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about just standard twill. And this is where I get really excited, especially bringing in a laser, because you can do so much with twill. You can laser etch on twill. You can create different type of stitch-like effects on twill. You could layer twill and then use your laser and cut all 3 layers at the same time, as well as laser a design on the top. So I think lasers are pretty cool, and especially if you have the ability to get creative with them, then you can really create something that is unique in the heat decorating world. And that's really what is going to set you apart. So this is something we offer. This is called Sim Stitch. So this is twill, and it does have a simulated stitch, which is actually done by a laser. So this is all heat applied. None of this has stitches inside. And just to prove it, this is the inside of the garment. So let's talk about how you are going to execute this with a laser. It cannot be done with a cutter, but if you have a laser, you just need to make sure that you have that stitch design in your artwork, and you really have to control what it is that you are going to create. Now, the next thing that I like to always give people ideas with is, imagine this said University High, and instead of having hawks down below, hawks was etched into the twill, or even a hawk was kind of etched somewhere in the design. So essentially you're creating numerous different looks and really bringing that decoration to life. That's less logo on the garment, but the impact is is full. You are really creating an elevated look. So Twill is one that I always really like to, like I said, have that conversation with, especially when I find out somebody has a laser, because sometimes they don't necessarily think, oh, hey, I could be using my laser to cut the twill versus a cutter, or however they're doing their process. So if you are wanting to dive down on ways to kind of utilize the equipment around you and what you're thinking about, let's form a plan. That way you know the best way to operate without spinning your wheels. Okay, the last material that I want to talk about in terms of vinyl before we get going on emblems and patches, because that's a whole nother world, is a little bit more of a specialty. So this is actually a reflective material. This is called glitter reflective, and I will back up just a little bit to see if we can get a better picture. But this is like a gel-like finish. But once the light hits it, it actually will reflect. Now, this isn't one I believe you can use with a laser simply because of the reflectivity beads, but I could confirm otherwise this cuts just fine with a cutter. And again, you're getting a really cool pattern. We have multiple other colors, but this is just unique. So if you're not wanting to do the plain Jane vinyl, the t-shirt vinyl, and you really want to have specialty materials, then this is one that I would consider, even though it is a glitter. Now, one other in the reflective world is a color reflect. And this is actually a copper reflective material. And it does have a thin material laid down first, which is called ultraweed. And if somebody was out and about, then it would reflect. We're actually kind of getting a little bit of that reflectivity right now. Everything looks silver versus white and the copper. And it's because it is starting to reflect. And as I get closer or kind of rotate the garment, you can see that the two colors are starting to show just a little bit better. That's probably the best angle, and it's simply because it's away from light and the sun. But this one I always like to show. There's red, there's royal. A lot of first responders actually really like this. They may not require some type of reflectivity on the garment that they're wearing, but any extra awareness is always great. And that red is a great pop and a great change versus the standard silver that we see in some reflective materials. Okay, so let's talk about what's extremely popular in the world of heat transfers right now, and that is dimensional, that is texture, as well as bringing logos to life. We see it on pro teams, we see it on headwear, we see it on drinkware, and that is what we call flex style here at Stahls. So this is actually a sticker. This one has the sticker base. Okay, thanks, Liz. And you can actually get it where it's heat applied. There are leather patches. And to give you an example of what it looks like on, here is a hat where we've got a lot of gaps in the art, creating a lot of movement. So this one was done with the cap press, but we are going to run into sessions. So like I said, we could go on and on about these products. So we'll keep chatting. And of course, you guys can always reach out if you have any questions.
Thank you so much, Kelly. Wow, I've learned so much from both you today. This has been fantastic. So